Watch the next video. Watch the next video. Watch the next video. No, I'm just joking, family. Family, thank you for joining us. Be sure to catch us on the next video, family. Peace. Watch the next video. Watch.
We were already here. The continent was connected. We had already had a landmass, and we were already in the Americas already. And if you look at any history and culture, you'll find us present. We've always been here. So for our ancestors who came by force and the ones who are already here, we want to acknowledge them.
I say.
And those who didn't make it, those who died and struggled for our freedom, for our life, for our futures. They died because some of them died because they chose to not bring their children into this horror that they were traveling in. Some died because they didn't want their children to be brought into who were children of rape and torture and abuse. They didn't want them to participate in this world to come. And those of us who died because they fought and struggled. And that's one thing I really saw when I went to the African American Museum in D.C. If y'all haven't gone, go. But at that museum, I saw that no matter where our encounters were with our opposition and our oppression, we resisted, even to this very day. We're still resisting. And so let's acknowledge those who fought and resisted oppression and slavery and torture and mutilation and all those violent crimes that were created upon us people as humanity.
I say.
And then for those of us who we know, and at this time, these are the ones we want to bring forward in our memory of them as we go around and just mention their name and say something very short of why you want us to remember them on your behalf. And I'll start with the female. I'll start by just saying I want to acknowledge my dad, Robert Shelton. He's somebody who I've never met. He died when my mother was in her third month carrying me. And so I carry his spirit with me everywhere I go. Even though I haven't seen him, all the things that he's done, I've done, playing instruments and singing and traveling and all that. You know, it's like I've been reborn in him. So for him to say, I say.
I say.
I like to give honor to my mother, Deborah Shelton Fox. She taught me determination, faith, and to love family.
I say.
Blessed to come from a strong family lineage, but every time we get together, I cannot help but remember Brother Quinde Kim Clinton, who always encouraged us to read. And so for that, I want to remember him.
I say.
I want to remember my father, Willie Fred Benson, who inspired me to be where I am.
I like to remember Brother John Fuller, Dr. Derek Kufu, and Brother Ibrahim, who gave me my acknowledgement and knowledge of what it was to be a black man.
I say.
I want to honor Gladys Patton, who was my grandmother, just for being able to make something out of nothing so that a family could exist.
I say.
I want to honor my grandfather, Edward G. Robinson. And he, after the death of my father, he gave me the male perspective on everything, and actually became the very essence of Meets family now.
I say.
I like to acknowledge Emzy Garrett. She always pushed me to think further and go deeper, and to always read and learn more about who I am, and always encouraged me in my spirituality and my history.
I say.
I'd like to honor Fred Johnson. Met him at a Kwanzaa maybe about 25 years ago. A couple of years later, he says, "You know, a bunch of us old guys are getting together and helping out at this new Stewart school. Why don't you come by?" I told him I didn't necessarily like the old guys part, but I would come by. So that led me to 9 years of some awfully great experiences that I thank Fred for.
Let's remember my mother, Pearl Smith, who was a single parent and raised 4 children.
I want to take a time to remember my grandma, Lillian Jackson. She inspired me to stay in school, go to college, get a well-paid job, and just stay out the streets and just be smart about my consequences, my situations, and be smart in everything I do.
I'd like to remember my mother, Mary Franco, who adopted me when I was 3, took me out of a very difficult situation, raised me to be a strong woman, God-fearing woman, and I loved her very much.
I want to remember my uncle Iman Abdul Medioun. He and I were, for some reason, were going through tough times during the late 60s and 70s. And we shared experience, and he guided me through what I was going through. He was very close to El Hajj Malik Shabazz in Chicago and Gary, Indiana. So it was through his tutelage that I know that's why I do a lot of what I do in the way that I do it. So I remember him this day in the Sasa.
I say.
I'd like to remember my mother, Ellen Marcella. Single mother, didn't graduate high school. I didn't know a lot of the struggle, but she took care of her family and her children and one of her children's children. And bought our first home in West Side of Akron and made sure we were okay. So my mother, Ellen Marcella.
She's pushed me to be a better person, be a person to have an education, have a job, have a life. Yeah, I want to have a life.
I want to give honor to great-great-grandparents. There was Liddy and Solomon Underwood on my grandmother's side, my mother's side, and Preston and Elizabeth Westbrook. The Flynn's were carriage makers. Back in the day, they were able to move around. But the story goes, through oral tradition, that they were very proud people. They made everything. They played the violin, and they made carriages. And that Flynn tradition has moved on over the centuries, where it laid a foundation for us, whether we chose to take a part in or not.
I'd like to honor my great-grandfather's little brother as a freedom fighter. He ran away from home when he was 12 to join the Union Army, and he came back with a cavalry sword.
I'd like to give honor to my mother, whose life was short, relatively short. She died at age 53. But in those 53 years, she was able to rear her 3 children against a lot of odds, life circumstances, so much so that it landed her in, she had a nervous breakdown, landed her in hospital, and caused us to be adopted into foster system. To which we were returned to her when she got better. But I, as an adult, can see now the many struggles that she went through and what she was trying to do as a mother. And in spite of all of the life challenges that she did have, she was able to instill in her children the good things that one wants in life. Pursue your education. Be a good person. So I like to give honor to my mother, Mary Ella Wright Bowman.
I say.
I'd like to honor my mother and father, Lucille and Jimmy Dent. They always told me if you honor your mother and father, your days will be longer. And like they always taught me to pray. And I'm 940 months old. It's 28,000 days old.
Come on, bro.
Say it.
I want to honor my mother, Ruby McClinic. She was just a quiet woman.
I say.
Habarigani family, today we have the beautiful opportunity of lighting the candle for Kujichagulia. Kujichagulia stands for self-determination. We are a collective, a community, a family of an eclectic collection of beautiful individuals uniting together under the same umbrella of love. I take care of me for you, you take care of you for me. It's necessary for functional and sustainable unity, which then begets cooperative economics and collective responsibility, making way for continued purpose and creativity through immense faith of God, faith in our ancestors, faith in one another, in ourselves. That's why it's so important to hold Kujichagulia high for self-determination, because when we're present, we can be present as a collective. Kujichagulia.
Habarigani. Listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen. Habarigani. Hear me now, hear me now, listen later, hear me now, listen later, listen. Habarigani. Listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen. Habarigani. Listen look, listen look, listen look. Moja Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia Kuumba Emani, Kwanzaa. Moja Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia Kuumba Emani, Kwanzaa. Listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look. Moja unity. Listen look, listen look, listen look. Kujichagulia, self-determination. Listen look, listen look. Ujima, listen look, listen look, listen look. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. Nia, purpose. Kuumba, creativity. Imani, faith. Money, moja Kujichagulia. Ujima, Ujama, Nia Kuumba Imani. Kwanzaa, moja Kujichagulia. Ujima, Ujama, Nia Kuumba Imani. Kwanzaa, listen look.
Do your African dance support? Do your African dance support? Do your African dance support? Genetics dance support. Genetics dance support. DNA support. DNA support. DNA support.
Habarigani. Listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen. Habarigani. Hear me now, hear me now, listen later, hear me now, listen later, listen. Habarigani. Listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen look, listen. Habarigani. Listen look, listen look, listen. Moja Kujichagulia. Ujima, Ujama, Nia Kuumba Imani. Kwanzaa. Moja Kujichagulia. Ujima, Ujama, Nia Kuumba Imani. Kwanzaa. Listen look.
Yo, if you didn't know, now you know. Once I got 7 principles, we live by the code. Unite all the sisters and my bros. We got power in our soul, professional. When I put the beat with the flow, I got water on the low. Drip for the cool, winter in the 614. Red, black and green candles. Lit.
Do your African dance support? 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 Do your African dance support?
Habarigani. Mzuri sana. Habarigani. Mzuri sana. Habarigani. Mzuri sana.
Habari gani? Nzuri sana. Moja kujichagulia ujima ujama nia kuumba imani Kwanzaa moja kujichagulia ujima ujama nia kuumba imani Kwanzaa listen look Moja unity listen look Kujichagulia self-determination listen look Ujima listen look Ujima collective work and responsibility Ujama cooperative economics Nia purpose Kuumba creativity Imani faith Money faith
Habari gani? Nzuri sana. Habari gani? Nzuri sana. Habari gani? Nzuri sana.